I'm back, guys. Thought I'd do a video on my latest purchase. This is an RCA 1929 RCA Victrola or Electrola. It's a radio record player. So I thought I'd show it to you and stuff. Excuse the mess out here in the garage. This thing weighs a ton. Even with everything out of it, the cabinet is still solid and very heavy. But thought I'd kind of let you get the best light I can on this. Now it's got a few little scuffs here and there. She's over, about 85 years old, so she's going to have some scuffs. A little bit beat up alongside here, which is unfortunate, but can be repaired. The top, which I don't know if we can get a good shot of in this dark, but it's got a little bit starting to lose some of its finish, so it's probably going to have to possibly be refinished. I'll try some Howard's Restore on it and see how well it does, but for the most part it's not in too bad a shape. The sides are really decent. There's some minor abrasions, but they're really light. I don't know how well you can get that and see that. Now we open it up and step back here and you can kind of see the grill cloth's really good shape. Of course, that's because of the doors. Most of the finish inside's good. The only interesting thing is there is some little bit of loss of veneer, which is usually you see this more on the outside of the doors than the inside. It's got some dirt. She needs to be cleaned up, and that's how you tune it. You can lift up and rotate it around, or leave it down for fine tuning. It's just strictly AM. It's a TRF radio, Nutridyne, power switch. This switch here flips to the phonograph or back to the radio, and then volume control is here. Wood knobs. So the grill cloth, other than being just a little dusty, is actually in pretty good shape. Now, we open the top up, and we have our turntable. It's just a 78 RPM. Of course, the little mat needs to be glued down. Came with a whole pot of, there's a whole bunch of brand new needles in here. Some pads for cleaning your records, and a little different style needle. Instead of straight, it's curved, as well as some needles in here. I don't know if you can see that. Don't know if I can get that open. It doesn't seem to want to open. But anyway, volume control here. That little arm right there turns it on. When it's off, it's got a brake on it. You turn it on. Then as the record plays and gets to the center, when it gets done, you just pull it back and it automatically shuts off. The book came with the manual. Victor Radio with Electrola instruction book. It's in really fine shape. Talks about, there's what it kind of looks like on the back. The radio. We'll discuss this a little bit more here in a minute. Installation, how you tune and do things of that nature. So it's just basically operational manual owner's manual. Tells where to oil the motor and stuff on the record player. So anyway, we'll sneak around here to the back, and I got the power supply inside, and I'll go over that in a minute here. We'll get some light. Now here's the radio itself. The shields down at the bottom is the tuning capacitors and the associated coils. There are 5 stages of amplification, all using 26 tubes. The little tube back here in the corner, which is missing the shield. There's supposed to be a shield over it. It did not come with the shield, but that's a 27 for the detector. The turntable motor is right here, and the big spring there is to hold the top open, which is quite heavy. This is I don't see if you can see it, but of course I got the motor off, so it's going to turn kind of hard, but let me flip the switch on that so it's not running the brake, and get the needles off. Now she turns nice and easy. But there's 6-pole induction motor, 2 poles here and a pole here, that makes 3, and then 2 poles here and a pole here makes the other 3, and it's an induction plate motor. The armature is just a aluminum metal plate. Up above there, I don't know if you can see it, but those little balls that's up there, that's the speed control. It's a governor, and as it rotates, those will fly out and move and engage a brake, a friction plate that slows the motor down and keeps it, and it's adjustable on top. Power supply set down here. That'd be the power supply and the amp, audio amp. It's got dual 45 push-pull, and the super heavy speaker is right there, which is quite heavy. I don't know if you can make out the U-shaped pole piece on there, but that is about a half-inch thick steel plate. Bend around. Of course, it's it's got a field coil, so it's electrodynamic. Antenna terminals there. Phonograph plugs in there. The rest plugged down here for power in the power supply, and the speaker plugs in and everything into there. Down into the amp that was, or the power supply amp down at the bottom. Now I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video here, go in the house, and we'll talk a little more about it. It's getting a little chilly out here anyway, and show you some pictures of this, not this particular radio, but one just like it, so I'll kind of give you some idea how the tuner works. It's a unique setup and stuff, and then we'll talk about the power supply. So nice thing about editing, I'll be right back. Alright guys, I'm back. Now we'll go over to schematic here, and this section right through here is the power supply and audio amp. You have 245s push pull driven by a 26, and then of course you got your various transformers, audio interstage and audio output transformer, power transformer here. The big thing to notice on it is the number of filament windings. You got the 5-volt going here for the 82, but then there's 4 other filaments windings. 2 of them go to the radio and 2 are used for the audio section. Filter can right here, and then these caps are in a can, and then this here is your choke. Now, and then it will move on to the radio part through the plug, and get this over here, and then here, this is the radio. I said there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stages of amplification, and it goes in the detector, feeds out to a switch, which is for radio or for the record player, and that will, and this is the needle pickup here for the record player, and of course the speaker, dial lamp, which happens to be a full line voltage dial lamp, power switch, volume control. Now, the thing about this radio was, when I got there and started talking to the guy, he had, when he bought the radio, he decided that it would be a good idea to just plug it in. You know, it's an 85-year-old radio, never been touched. Well, he plugged it in, and it made static, made some noise, and then it started, he started smelling something, and he started noticing smoke from the power supply section. These 3 windings ended up being bad. They went out. What turned out to cause it was C9 here had just went completely to a short. Most of these were all leaky, but this one actually just, it went to short. What that did, 80 rectifier will just keep pushing until the tube just melts. It will keep pushing. So it started drawing a tremendous amount of current, which actually damaged its winding and severely overheated the high tension secondary, which actually ended up shorting, which then in turn took out the primary, and that was all she wrote on it. So, a little rant here. First of all, capacitors do short. I've shown that before. Secondly, even ones that are not shorted, if they're leaky enough, can overload a transformer and possibly damage it. And third, and the most important thing, never, ever, ever plug a radio in you don't know anything about and turn it on. It can do severe damage. So I do have a transformer for it, actually 2 transformers it's going to take, considering the fact that this has got so many filament windings. So I've got one transformer which will take care of this bottom half, and the other one takes care of this part. So I've been kind of working on that right now. The main reason why you want to plug it in, which I didn't bother to show you, I forgot to, this came with like 4 boxes, decent sized boxes of records, dating from at least the early 30s and maybe late 20s to up through the 50s records. So some are not 78s, and I'm not sure why they would even be trying to play them on there, but a lot of them are the old records, old 78s, and the albums that they're in were folders that were put out, or albums put out to put records in from RCA. So they're real nice little albums that hold several records. Anyway, I'll show that later on our video on this. Now, before anybody wonders about all the other projects I've got going right now, every one of them is waiting for parts. I have a reasonable inventory of parts that I keep, but I also have a very bad habit of never keeping up on the inventory until I actually run out of something. So I've got to order a bunch of parts and get my inventory up and restock it, and so I can, plus there's some special parts. The Admiral needs a couple power resistors I do not have. They'll fit in it. I've got one that's the right value, but it's like, you know, I think the TV calls for a 10 watt and it's like a 80 watt resistor. So anyway, and then there's a couple other power resistors that I do not have, as well as some capacitors, 0.047s I'm completely out of, and a few others. So anyway, all the other projects are basically waiting for me to get a parts order in and getting the parts. So I thought I would mess with the power supply on this. Now, as promised, I would show you some pictures, because otherwise I'd have to bring it in. There's that shield that's missing on this. I think I could probably enlarge this picture a little bit. Over the 27, and then the rest of these are the 26s in the tune sections. The TRF, tune radio frequency. This is the back side of the chassis. Dials up in here and stuff. Now I'll move on. This is with the cover plate off that you've seen on there. This is the top of the radio with the cover plate off. You've got your tube sockets. Here's part of the tuning mechanism, and we'll see in another picture a little more about it. And then of course your various parts and caps and the like. Now we'll move on. Here's the bottom of the chassis with the shields on. This bottom half and these shields are copper, pure copper. The top half is steel. Power supply chassis is also all copper. But here's with the shields. There's that drum on the bottom side of it, right here. I showed, you know, previously, this drum right here. So now here's with the shields off. As you rotate the drum, it rotates these. These are pivots right here, and rotates these tune capacitors right here. This is each tune section. You got the coil, cap, coil, cap, and coil cap. So as you rotate this, that drum, which is being rotated by sliding the arm back and forth, as you've seen me on the front of the radio, it rotates the drum, which in turn rotates these guys, moves this right through here. These move, and these are pivoted right here, and that's hooked to that, and that'll close or open these. Right now they're fully open. Now here's the power supply and audio amplifier. 245s, 80 rectifier, and the 26. And arm's getting tired, so it's probably a little shaky. Sorry about the shakiness. I'm holding this free hand. Here's one audio transformer, and the other two are in here. Filter can. This can back here is the choke, and here's the transformer. And the plugs all plug in over on this side. Here's the bottom side of it. Big power resistor, which I've got out of the radio, and it's good. This is it right here. That's a really large resistor. Here's where the radio plugs in right here. Speaker plugs in here. The power cord plugs here. And then this is where the turntable plugs in here. Power cord's in pretty decent condition, by the way. Filter choke, or filter can, capacitor can, and right down at the bottom down here is the filter choke, power transformer. This was just bleeding out tar like crazy. And then of course your tube sockets and various associated resistors, and here's the transformers, audio section transformers. One of these is tone and one's hum control, I can't remember which, that are actually factory set, but you can adjust them if you need to, as far as the service manual goes, says, and I actually have the factory service information for this. I found. Now, the interesting thing about this radio, just to discuss one little more thing about it, it's a Nutridyne radio, which requires it, there's some capacitors that require being adjusted, and they're C2 right here. What they're in there for is you peak these out to get the strongest signal, but at the same time not for it to go into oscillation. They can start oscillating if the gain gets too high, so that's what these are doing, is trying to give you the greatest gain at the same time, not for it to go self-oscillation on you. Now, the thing about that is, if you read up on what they want you to do this, is you take you take a 26 tube, one of these tubes, one of these triodes, and you cut one of the filament pins off. A good 26, and you cut the filament pin off. Because you don't want the tube operating, but they need the, what they're actually interested in is this capacitance between the grid and the plate. Because you see where this thing is located in the plate circuit and runs back around to the grid circuit. Well, you need to have a good tube, but you don't want it operating. So you plug this in one at a time. You just plug it in one section, hook a meter up, hook a signal generator up, and you adjust the capacitor. And then you go to the next one, the next one, and the next one. Now, I'm not going to do that if it does need adjusting, because for one thing, nobody makes 26 tubes anymore. Number two, they're not like they're super highly valuable, but they are getting a little more rare, and I'm not about ready to destroy a good one. So one of the suggestions that they actually make in the service manual, which they consider is a better way, is to make an adapter plug. You get a 4-pin socket plug, empty plug, and a 4-pin socket, and you hook hook 3 wires up, but don't hook the 4th filament, one of the filament leads up, and you use that as an adapter, so you don't have to destroy a tube. But more importantly, they said that way you can actually use the exact tube that's in that section that's going to be left in the radio for doing the adjustment, which is the most accurate way. And that's what I'm going to do. I've got a few 4-pin tube bottoms, and I've got a 4-pin socket, and I'll just make it up if I need to do the adjustment. Anyway, I'm going to end this video here. It's probably kind of got long. I'll continue on working with this. This one will have some interesting things. I'll leave you with one little note here. This winding here, this filament winding, which goes up to the 45s, is center tapped. That's so that they can they center tapped it. It comes down here and goes to R4. That's the grid resistor. That's or cathode resistor. That's for self-biasing the grids. And the replacement that I've got does not have a center tap for that. So I'm going to leave you with what you think I'm going to do to remedy that situation. I have to pick a center point. I can't go from one end or the other end. I have to be at the center. So there is a little trick to do that, and I'll show you on the next video when I get on the next video. We'll discuss it. But that being said, one of the big things to take from this: do not take a radio or TV that you know nothing about and ever plug it in. And hopefully whoever you're buying it from hasn't done it, because you can do damage to something that may be difficult to fix or replace. So always know what you got, and always use a lot of precautions before you ever even make any type of attempt to powering it up, such as a dim bulb tester, a variac with some sort of way of telling current, an amp meter or something. Any number of these things so that you can keep good track of what's going on and shut things down before anything gets hurt. So anyway, the next video we'll discuss a little bit about that and what's going on with the power supply and everything, and how I'm overcoming certain problems. So I'll see you guys on the next video, and thanks for watching.